Good evening, everyone. It's Tom Padula from TomPadulaTV and Ingegna Booksellers here in Melbourne. Tonight is an interesting one because I'm doing Canto 11 of Inferno by Dante Alighieri. We are commemorating his 700 years since he passed away, but he remains as much alive today as he ever was, and thanks also to his work, because it came right in the middle of a Florence that was really flourishing economically. So we're talking about the 13th century and the 14th century here. So 1200, 1300, 1300, 1400. I had a bit of a problem there last week in terms of the centuries. When you refer to them, you got to get them right. So the 13th century is basically 1200, okay, up to 1300, and that becomes the 14th century. So in the 14th century, what happens after Dante was the old gentleman before Francesco Petrarca and Giovanni Boccaccio. There were two other literary figures of Tuscany at the time who had a great influence on the Italian language. It was a very, very important trio of writers, because they together, they actually then developed the lingua italiana. But we must not forget, though, that the Italian language was una lingua volgare, cioè la lingua del popolo, and Latin was still used in most other business matters. But during the 13th century and the 14th century, in the beginning of the 14th century, basically with Petrarca, he's a humanist. The Renaissance, Italy's Renaissance, really began around the 1300 onwards, because then the Florentine banks, they had the fights with the Siena, and they had won. The Florentines then saw a great economic recovery and increase in population, and they also then the banks began to print the fiorino, the golden coins that were used all over Europe for trade. So here, this is the beginning. We're talking about the Renaissance, and as I said before, I can't do. This is a study of the time. So the more you delve into it, the more interesting it becomes. And the other, Giovanni Boccaccio, was born. I'll be talking about them straight after Canto 11 a little bit. And apart from Canto 11, then I will also do a couple of my poems and quite a few songs tonight, because I want to use the words that are in those songs in my Italian classes on Tuesdays from 11:25 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. So right in the middle of the day, and afterwards you can, of course, go to lunch. Whilst I have a commitment with a local radio station as well at 1 o'clock, which is fantastic. It's good for me. And I'm happy to be doing this work, because this is the work that I've done all my life. In fact, teaching here in Australia and promoting Italian language and other languages. And it's been a great journey for me, and this reading of Dante is also a journey, because Canto 11 is a very important canto, because it's a structural one. It talks about the structure of sins in the Commedia. There have been a lot of writers who've discussed all this. What can I do? I mean, here we are. In another minute, I'll be starting. So basically, that's it. The only thing that I want to talk about, just remind you that incontinenza, when we talk about incontinenza, it doesn't mean just physical incontinence, but it's a moral one as well. It's a lack of restraint in Dante's Inferno. Lack of restraint, there's a malice, and there's also a matta bestialidade. So, there is a graduation of sins and the way they're punished. Whereas in the past, and I've heard lately, oh no, all sins are the same. But according to this philosophy here, that once from Dante picked up a lot of his thinking from St. Thomas Aquinas, and St. Thomas Aquinas picked it up from Aristotle. So, but it's 7:30 and I'm going to start on Canto 11. So enjoy it, and thank you very much for whoever comes on. Filippo, ciao, ci rivediamo, e grazie Nina pure te che sei venuta su. Adesso cominciamo con il canto 11, perché questo è un canto molto importante. It's a very important canto, this one. È un canto strutturale, della struttura della Divina Commedia, cioè dei cerchi del sesto al nono cerchio qui, in questo, è la città di Dite, e quindi si parla, se vi ricordate bene, if you remember well, I said that hell is like an ice cream cone, wide at the top and very thin at the bottom. And the sins, the more grave sins are further down, whereas the sins that are not as bad, if you like, in the eyes of God, in the Christian God, in the eyes of Dante, are the ones at the top, that are outside of the city of Dita and not further down. Not further. So this one here, if you like, are the sins that are in the middle. This is Canto 11. There are 33 cantos of the Inferno. And the first canto, if you remember, was the introduction to Dante. So there we are. So here we go. Okay. And you're going to enjoy this singing tonight, quite a few songs, which is good, and I'm going to enjoy it too. So let's have a look. Canto 11. Canto 11, nel quale tratta dei 3 cerchi di sotto d'inferno e distingue delle genti che dentro vi sono punite, che qui vi più che altrove, e solve una questione. In other words, this is where we are. Canto 11. Le 3 nature dei violenti contro gli altri, contro se stessi, contro Dio. La natura della violenza è triplice, perché essa può essere esercitata contro il prossimo e contro le sue cose, contro se stessi e contro le proprie sostanze, contro Dio e contro la natura e l'arte che da Dio discendono. Ciascuna categoria di violenti occupa uno degli anelli in cui è suddiviso il 7° cerchio dell'inferno. That's where we are now, il 7° cerchio. Here we go. In sulle estremità d'un'alta ripa, che facevan gran pietre rotte in cerchio, venimmo sopra più crudele stipa. Ok, so scendendo giù, si vede giù nell'inferno, qui, in questo girone, perché ci sono 3 gironi qui. E qui per l'orribile soperchio del puzzo che il profondo abisso agita, un puzzo, il puzzo della malattia dei peccati, se volete, in the hell. So he's not going to put them in a nice place, he's going to put them there, in the inferno. Further down e più puzza c'è, that's for sure. E qui per l'orribile soperchio del puzzo che il profondo abisso agita, ci raccostammo indietro ad un coperchio d'un grande anello, ov'io vidi una scritta che dicea: Anastasio Papa guardo, lo qual trasse fotin della via dritta. E qui si sta parlando di un Papa che è stato, che non ha fatto le cose che un Papa dovrebbe fare, e quindi questo qui ha bisogno di un po' di spiegazione, ma Dante e Virgilio, ma lascia stare, questi qua, sbagliato, no? Era Papa, ma non un Papa buono. Lo nostro scendere conviene essere tardo, sicché sausi un poco in prima il senso al tristo fiato, e poi no, i fia riguardo. So, Virgilio says, going to be late going there, he's going to stop to talk to this Papa che non è proprio un bravo Papa. Let's go down, andiamo giù, non ti preoccupare di questo Papa, che è il Papa Anastasio. Quindi se voi leggete la Divina Commedia ci sono le didascalie sotto e saprete che qui Fotin una referenza a un altro eretico, qualcosa di simile. E quindi il nostro scendere conviene essere tardo, cioè non andiamo in ritardo. sicché sausi un poco imprima il senso al triste fiato e poi noi fia riguardo, non aver riguardo di quest'uomo. Così il maestro e io, alcun compenso, dissi lui, trova che il tempo non passi perduto. No, I don't want to waste my time here, you know. Ed egli, and Virgilio replies, vedi che ciò pensa, you see, you followed my steps, you're thinking the same as me now, let's not waste time, good. Figliol mio, dentro da cotesti sassi, cominciò poi a dir, sono 3 cerchietti, 3, di grado in grado, graduati, come que che lassi, come questi qua che stiamo lasciando, andando giù. Tutti sono pieni di spiriti maledetti. All these in these circles sono spiriti maledetti. Because they did not, follow God's or the Christian values. There's also Dante in here too. He always respects the old. Dante always respects whatever went on beforehand, and he then wants to, he brings it into his own times and saying, reflect on what you do, because the things that you do can be punished by God. So the most important thing is, and he also, of course, he's a Christian person, so he says, we've made progress since then. So that's it. Tutti sono pieni di spiriti maledetti, ma perché poi ti basti pur la vista, intendi come e perché sono costretti. D'ogni malizia, c'odio in cielo acquista, ingiuria è il fine, ed ogni fin cotale, o con forza o con frode altrui contrista. So, this is where the structure comes in. In God's law, if you like, the law of Christianity, it says, la malizia, c'odio in cielo acquista, che il cielo, cioè quelli in paradiso, odiano, cioè le cose che non vanno bene sono spiegate in questo modo qui, sono spiegate. You're not allowed to do that, but if you do, this way you end up. So, ingiuria è il fine ad ogni fin cotale. So in other words, whatever you do, and the sin that you commit, and the punishment you're going to get. Ma perché frode dà l'uom proprio male, più spiace a Dio, e però standi sotto li fraudolenti, e più dolor li assale. So the people who commit fraud are the ones who are going to be punished more than even the violent ones, because the violent ones sono peccati di incontinenza. They didn't, the incontinenti sono persone che maniera, diremo, erano coloro che dissero l'amore è vero fine, persone e cose da per se stesse, ma in maniera sconsiderata, like Paolo e Francesca. So in other words, incontinence sins are not as grave as the ones caused by malice or fraudolenti. Ma perché frode è dell'uomo proprio male, più spiace a Dio, e però standi sotto li fraudolenti, e più dolor li assale. Di violenti il primo cerchio è tutto. So the first circle here, sono tutti violenti. They committed some sort of sin in using violence. Ma perché si fa forza a 3 persone, in 3 gironi distinto e costrutto. So the violent are divided into 3 sections as well, even though they were, it's the same sin, but it's not quite the same. There are 3 types, because there's the sin against, and then he says, then we'll talk about it. I want to keep on reading and then I'll come back. Addio a sé, al prossimo si pone, far forza dico in loro e in lor cose, come udirai con aperta ragione. Morte per forze ferute dogliose nel prossimo si danno, e nel suo avere ruina, incendi e tollette dannose. Onde omicide ciascun che malfiere, guastatori e predon, tutti tormenta lo giron prima per diverse schiere. So these are the types of sins. Puote uomo avere in sé mal violenta, e nei suoi beni, e però nel secondo giron conviene che senza pro si penta qualunque priva sé del vostro mondo, biscazza e fonde la sua facoltà e piange là dove essere del giocondo. So if you sin against other people, if you are violent against other people, you're going to go further down in the hell, in the circles of hell. Puossi far forza nella deitade, col cor negando e bestemmiando quella, e spregiando natura e sua bontade, e però lo minor giron suggella del sogno suo e Sodom e Caorsa a chi spregiando Dia col cor favella. So, if you go against God, that's the worst bit. You can't, if you do in your art, in writing, in the arts, because the arts is a bit like being a god on earth. You know, you are creating things, and it's in his image in a way. And therefore, if you commit sins in those areas there, you will have worse punishments. So, before I go any further, I'm going to stop there, 51. I'm going to read this. La classificazione dei peccati. La classificazione dantesca dei peccati è basata sulla distinzione tra peccati di incontinenza e peccati di malizia. I peccati di malizia a loro volta possono essere commessi con la violenza o con la frode. And when I start talking too much, I need to drink. Ok. Questa concezione si fonda sulle teorie di Aristotele, il quale però divideva i peccati in incontinenza, malizia e matta bestialità. Dante omette l'ultima categoria, a meno che essa vada identificata, come credono diversi commentatori, con la violenza. Some of the greatest writers of Italian literature have read Dante and have commented on him. Who am I? Ci sono 3 categorie di dannati nell'inferno: gli ignavi, i non battezzati e gli eretici, che non rientrano nel sistema costruito da Dante. Il poeta risolve il problema collocando semplicemente questi 3 gruppi al di fuori delle categorie principali. So the ones who didn't commit the sins, the ones who lived before Christ, they didn't commit many, but he puts them in a softer area of hell. Gli ignavi e i non battezzati del limbo vengono prima degli incontinenti, mentre gli eretici occupano una zona che cade a metà tra i peccati di incontinenza e quelli di malizia. So, the heretics, for example, they don't commit physical violence, they commit it with their mind. Therefore, they are in the middle, sort of just before the doors of Dieter. I think that's where we met them. So again, you have to revise this. You have to revise your reading of Dante. I think a second reading, when you finished the whole lot, would be in order to really become accustomed with his work. So let's go on. So that was the classification of sins, according to the writer here. La frode, onde ogni coscienza è morsa, no, let me read before, e però lo minor giron suggella del segno suo e Sodoma e Caorsa a chi spregiando Dio col cor favella. La frode, onde ogni coscienza è morsa, può l'uomo usare in colui che in lui fida e in quel che fidanza non imborsa. Questo modo di retro par che incida, pur lo vinco d'amor che fa natura, onde nel cerchio secondo s'annida, ipocrisie, lusinghe e chi ha fattura, falsità, ladroneccio e simonia, ruffian, baratti e simile lordura. So you can see he actually elencates the sins. And some of the words here, you need to look up. Simonia, lordura, they're like modern Italian, but not quite. It's a different type of Italian here, but it's very close to what we have today. So you can actually, in my study of Italian, I could go back here and pick out the words, the words and the adjectives, etc., etc. Per l'altro modo, quell'amor sobria, per esempio, per che usa Dante, is it's a preposition which did not exist in Latin. So that's the other thing too. And these guys here, both him, Dante, Petrarca, Boccaccio, they all knew Latin very well. They spoke it. It was the lingua classica per tutte le cose importanti. Allora, per l'altro modo, quell'amor sobria che fa natura è quel che poi aggiunto di che la fede special si crea. So we're talking about, you know, the relationship between the sinner and God, God's recommendations for good living through the Christian faith. And he says, and he doesn't exclude whatever went on in the past. Because if you come to my world history on a Thursday night, I'm picking up world history from the beginning of time according to scientists. But according to Il Vangelo, the Old Testament, etc., God made earth in 7 days. And the last day he relaxed. But we know, you know, like the world was supposed to be flat, and Galileo said, no, it's round. So progress comes. You have to understand religion in its context. It's not a fixed thing. It's something that, you know, the people, religious people, have to understand that all religions want the best for people, but some of the practitioners in those religions don't do the right thing. So you've got to distinguish between who does the right thing, who does the wrong thing. And Dante was interested in that category of people, and so he put a lot of them in hell. What's new, pussycat, huh? He did it then. We do it now. Even with our criminals, you know, some people have got the softer prison and the other ones have got the worse ones. We do that as a you know, rather than just kill them off. You know, that's what they used to do once upon a time. In a lot of our films are very violent. Ok, let's go on. Per l'altro modo, quell'amor sobria che fa natura è quel che poi aggiunto di che la fede speciale si crea. Onde nel cerchio minore, quello di sotto, ove è il punto dell'universo in su che Dite siede. So that's the bottom part where the city of Dite sits. Qualunque trade in eterno è consunto. So whatever happens in here, again, you know, you need to read this over and over again. E io, maestro, assai chiara procede la tua ragione. Oh, you're so, you know, reasonable. You use your reason very well. E assai ben distingue questo baratro e il popolo che possiede. And you are actually structuring for me whatever happens here in terms of the sins. Thank you very much. Baratro is the how, è il popolo, le anime, che possiede. Ma dimmi, qui della palude pingue che mena il vento e che batte la pioggia e che si incontrano con si aspre lingue, perché non dentro della città roggia sono ai puniti? So I ask, why and the others ones not, you know, they're not punished in this way? Se Dio li ha in ira, if God has got them in his vision, why aren't they punished in here? Ed egli a me, perché tanto delira, disse, lo ingegno tuo da quel che sole, over la mente dove altrove mira. Ah, you want to know even more about all this? I'm going to tell you. Non ti rimembra di quelle parole con le quali la tua etica pertratta le 3 disposizioni che il cielo non vuole? Don't you remember, you know, when you came in, according to your philosophy, what you wanted to do, etc., etc. So he's talking about Dante's journey up to that time. He says, incontinenza. So don't forget, you know, talking about, remember the 3 animals? Which were they? La lonza, il leone, e la lupa. Who did la lonza was Firenze, you know, the people who governed Firenze. Il leone was the emperor, you know, Frederick II, and the French ones, etc. But Frederick was a nice guy. But what I'm saying is, and then la lupa, was the worst one, represent the papacy, which had all the power at the time. Erano sempre amanti di materialismo proprio, not spirituality. That's why they got so many churches and, you know, they're rich. But you can't be generous unless you have it. That's the problem we all have. I like to be very generous with everyone, but if I give everything away, unless you're San Francesco, he gave everything away, and then what happened to him? His father, we've forgotten, but he went out away in the nude, and now he's got all these convents and churches in his name. But he doesn't own them, you know, they're in his name. Let's face it. So these are the ones that incontinenza, malizia è la matta bestialità, e come incontinenza men Dio offende e men biasimo accatta. So these three elements here, incontinence, la malizia, cioè questi peccati minori, God punished them in a nicer way. That's all. They're still not in what he wants, but he's going to punish them less. Se tu riguardi ben questa sentenza e reciti alla mente chi sono quelli che sì di fuor sostengono penitenza, tu vedrai ben perché da questi felli siano dipartiti e perché men crucciata la divina vendetta li martelli. So, this Canto 11 is a structural one. Following this, we're going to meet a lot of people that lived in Dante's times, and they're going to be punished accordingly. So whatever he sees in his society, they will be punished in Canto 12 onwards. We're going to have some fun, because you're going to meet some really nasty people. Do we have any in our society? I don't think so, no. Even the ones who protest against, and what about the protests themselves? So there you are. La divina vendetta li martelli. O sol che sani ogni vista. I've got some time. O sol che sani ogni vista turbata, tu mi contenti sì quando tu solvi, che non men che saver dubbiar m'aggrata. Ancora indietro un poco ti rivolvi, dissi io, là dove di che usura offende la divina bontà e il groppo solvi. Filosofia, mi disse, a chi la intende nota, non pure in una sola parte, come natura lo suo corso prende, dal divino intelletto e da sua arte. E se tu ben la tua fisica note, tu troverai non dopo molte carte, che l'arte vostra, quella, quanto pote, segue, come il maestro fa il discente, sì che vostr'arte a Dio quasi è nepote. That's what I was talking about. Art, writing, whatever is art, it's in God's creative mood. So in other words, you have to use all this in a good way. You can't, otherwise you're going to be punished even more. But before, perché l'usuriere altre via tene, per sé natura e per la sua seguace dispregia, poi chi in altro pon la spene. Ma seguimi, and then it finishes there. So it says, you know, these are the sins. This is the structure of the circles of hell. And some of them, they got extra gironi. So not un cerchio, ma il girone. Within the cerchio, there are more paths. And because I was working it out, how come Dante has got 9 circles of hell, and then he's got 33 cantos? Where that's going to fit them all? So he does it by, you know, you got a little house, you got un palazzo con tanti piani. That's what he does with hell. He divides it up accordingly, according to the sins, according to the type of sins that there are, etc., etc. And now, Virgilio is walking with Dante. Let's not forget that they are in hell. But they also got, I don't know, they got the universe, because here he says, oh look, ma segui ormai che il gir mi piace, che i pesci guizzan su per l'orizzonte e il carro tutto sopra e il cuore giace, e il balzo via là oltre si dismonta. La costellazione dei pesci all'orizzonte. Virgilio calcola il trascorrere del tempo ricorrendo in maniera non del tutto chiara alla posizione delle stelle. Il maestro spiega a Dante che la costellazione dell'Orsa Maggiore, il carro, è a nord-ovest, mentre quella dei pesci comincia ad essere visibile sopra l'orizzonte a nord-est. Dal momento che, come si spiega nel canto 1, il sole sorge in ariete, e visto che la distanza tra due segni è di circa 2 ore, mancano più o meno 2 ore all'alba. So, here Virgilio goes back, because he goes to the constellation, because I think they're still in the dark here, but I'm going to show you what happens here. There you are, that's la costellazione. That's Orsa Maggiore. If you look into the sky, but not in a southern sky, it's different. And this other one too. So Dante, this is the sign here. So this is what Virgilio is referring himself to. So, look, I have quite a lot of an extensive note. Filippo, se tu mi ascolti che sei in Italia, ho bisogno di molti inferni qua, i libri dell'inferno, quindi se li trovi me li mandi. Some people, you know, I've got a friend of mine in Puglia from Monopoli, and he's been a very good friend, and well, you know, he can help me out with getting some Inferno to you guys. Whoever wants to read Dante, you have to find the books. I have plenty of books of Purgatorio and Paradiso, but very few people read Purgatorio and Paradiso. They're all interested in Inferno, you know, like newspaper people. They love the bad things. The good things you put apart. You take them for granted, like good people. A good person is not an interesting person, is it? O sì? Quello che fa casino è più ben voluto. You know, it keeps you entertained. Of course, I'm wrong there, but look, really bad people, they win in the short term. They win the battle and lose the war. Good people lose many battles, but win the war. Think about that. Quando perdi, tu guadagni, ma quando guadagni, subito, tu perdi. Because you get your reward straight away. Therefore, there's no more. That's where it's at. So that's where you know, Dante comes in, because this work here, it elencates, in this Canto 11, elencates the structure of hell, all the sins. So when I finish with all this, I might just put down in Canto 1, there's this sin, Canto 2. You can work it like that. And they are the sins that we commit today. That's why Dante is important. It's important to know. And when you think about the people who migrated to Australia, who worked hard, they didn't have the language, avevano fatto la quinta elementare, neanche alcuni. Questa è cultura, alta cultura per le genti di una certa, well, di un certo modo di pensare pure. But when you have to survive, these things here, you do what you have to do. But if you have children that have gone to university but don't speak Italian, honestly, ask them to come to my Italian class. I start from the beginning and finish at the end. And the same with the history part. Some people have gone into do ragioneria, they do law, whatever. They don't do the history like I do. I missed out on a particular degree that would bring me a lot of money. You have to work hard for it. But at the same time, because I've had to move from place to place, you know, I've sort of moved with the times, with whatever attracted me or I had to do, that's gives you, all those negatives become my positive. And finally, I'm reading Dante. It's because I'm still here. Once I'm gone, somebody else can do the job. But somebody else before me have done it. A lot of them have done Dante. a lot of the major Italian writers. And talking about that, it's 7:59, exactly 8 o'clock, like, puntualmente, all'inglese o all'italiana. Gli italiani sono puntuali, vero? Sempre. Ok. Well, Dante had two great admirers of his time, because he was born in 1265 and died in 1321. Now, Francesco Petrarca was born, when was he born? He was born on the 19th of July, on 20th of July, 1304. And apparently Dante began to write the Commedia, la Divina Commedia, in 1308, whilst he was in exile. I got an idea, I've heard that he probably had been thinking about it for a long time. You don't just come up with your idea and you write it. I've got La mia avventura di curiosin. I've been thinking about it for 50 years. I'm just doing the second chapter now. I've done the first chapter, it's already done. Now I'm doing the second chapter of Le avventure di Curiosin. But so he was born and died on the 19th of July 1374. He was born in Arezzo, Italy, in Tuscany, and died in Arqua, Petrarca, Italy. He had two children and he had one brother. He was the founder of, he was reputed, initiated in a way, the 14th century Italian Renaissance Italy, one of the earliest humanists. Really, no, these people here, the progress came from trade. It came from the Crusades. The fact that they fought wars in the Middle East and all of Europe went there, and then they won only the first crusade. The 6 other crusades were lost, but they came back and they brought, this trade thing continued through the 13th century, 1200s. And then by the 1300s, things became, la pace arriva. And in fact, things started to progress really a lot. The Renaissance really was incredible, an incredible resurgence of economic activity. Now, Giovanni Boccaccio was famous for, Petrarca was famous for his canzoniere, and Giovanni Boccaccio was famous for his what do you call it, Decamerone. History of, there's 100 stories of a group of people who escaped the pandemic, the Black Plague in Florence around 1350, whatever it was. It was in the middle there, and he wrote Il Decamerone in there. There were 3 boys and 7 girls, I can't remember, but I'll bring those to you as well. So these are the 2 people I wanted to talk to you about, because you should really look them up. Francesco Petrarca, Giovanni Boccaccio. Go Google, start looking at the earlier Italian, even Dante is the father of Italian language, but there was also a Sicilian school before him, or at the same time. Okay? And we can go to the Sicilian school in Palermo when Frederick II owned those lands. He was German background. Okay, so there we are. That's them. Now, time runs away fast, and I'm going to read 2 of my poems, and then I'm going to do the songs, which gives me a chance to relax and for you to enjoy it. And, I'm really enjoying that part, because I'm introducing a lot of Italian singers to people who normally don't listen to them. And I'm also using the words in those songs for the teaching of Italian and the poetry as well. But look at this from my book, La Suonata si chiama. I only did 2, they're short ones. C'è nel mondo una chitarra che suona nella mente degli artisti. Non suona per tutti questa chitarra singolare, ma solo per quelli che la sanno far suonare. O voi bambini che vivete adesso, non vi dimenticate di impararla, perché nel mondo d'oggi non si suona se non in gruppi e voi soli siete. Fatela suonare qualche volta negli amorosi prati della bella primavera, E se la natura non vi ascolta, non ve ne infischiate troppo, ma fate alzare il vivo suono della chitarra che palpita nel cuore dei poeti. So that's your chitarra suona più piano. I wrote this about 40 years ago. So this one here, lo vedi tu? Ognuno sa, ognuno fa. Tutti ascoltano e guardano. Tutti parlano e fanno. E questa è la storia di ogni giorno, ma tutto finisce e poi tutto si ripete in altri luoghi, in altri tempi. Il vedere questo cammino da vicino è cosa veramente interessante. Lo vedi tu? That's why you should come on to my history lessons. Well, that's only two today because I've got more songs. So that's it. Now, well, I hope you enjoyed that one. I really, I actually then go back to what I've said because as I gather all my materials, I have to concentrate on what I'm going to say and sometimes, stuff it up. And so my digressions, that's to give me a bit of, a bit of time too. Adesso andiamo alle canzoni che sono bellissime e queste canzoni qua le ho già fatte io in un certo senso senza musica, ma questa volta c'è la musica che è per voi ed ecco qua, questo qua è Fiorin Fiorello con Dora e Rino.
Oh, it's beautiful. Fiorin Fiorello here with Dora and Rino and here we go. Fiorin Fiorello. Oggi tutto il cielo è in festa. Più ridente brilla il sole e non so perché vedo intorno a me tutte rose e viole. Il mio cuore è innamorato, non lo posso più frenare. Io non so cos'è, c'è qualcosa in me che mi fa cantare. Fiorello, l'amore è bello vicino a te, mi fa sognare, mi fa tremare, chissà perché. Fior di margherita, cos'è mai la vita, se non c'è l'amore che il nostro cuore fa palpitare. Fior di verbena, se qualche pena l'amor ci dà, fa come il vento che in un momento passa e va. Ma quando tu sei con me, io son felice perché Fiorin Fiorello, l'amore è bello vicino a te.
Well, you can see, sometimes you can't get the first lot, so you can read it like in poetry, and it's good. I mean, we're experimenting as well with these things here, and I have a great enjoyment out of it. This one here, the next one, is La Mazurka della Nonna.
Beautiful song, La Mazurka della Nonna, but we're going to give it a great interpretation today. And here we go, La Mazurka della Nonna. Quando senti l'orchestrina, tra una danza americana che strimpella una mazurka dall'aria paesana, pensi allora alla quadriglia d'un bel tempo che passò, quando usava la pariglia attaccata all'andò, quando non c'erano i tanchi ai foxtrot. Alla mazurka che ballava la mia nonna, con le trecce a penzoloni e con i mutandoni sotto la sua gonna. Quando mio nonno per baciare la sua mano non usava la scaletta ma la bicicletta fino piano. I giovincelli di 20 anni o poco più come eran belli coi baffoni per in su. Alla mazurka tu del tempo sei lontano, quando prima di sposarsi stavano a guardarsi con le mani in mano. Or si balla la carioca, il sassofono rimbomba, ma mio nonno suona ancora il grammofono a tromba. Pensa, ahimè, con nostalgia all'antica gioventù, quando allora ogni Maria non era Mariù. com'era bello quel tempo che fu. Alla mazurka che ballava la mia nonna, con le trecce penzoloni, con i mutandoni sotto la sua gonna. Quando mio nonno per baciare la sua mano non usava la scaletta ma la bicicletta fino piano. I giovincelli di 20 anni o poco più come erano belli con baffoni per in su. Alla mazurka d'un bel tempo assai lontano, quando prima di sposarsi stavano a guardarsi con le mani in mano.
I don't know whether you've ever heard of that one. If you have, now you have for sure. Well, that's La Mazurka. That's the next one is il tango, which you should all know this one, il tango delle capinere.
This is a beautiful song, La mazurka della nonna.
Sorry. Well, wait a minute. No.
Here we go.
Well, I did that the other day too. Mamma mia. I have to watch out. Hold on. I have to watch out what I'm doing. Come on, computer. This one here is called Il Tango delle Capinere.
This is a song that Dora and Rina have played before. Il Tango delle Capinere. We have it also in a lot of the clubs. They play this a lot. Il tango, tango. So here we go. Il Tango delle Capinere. Sogni e tutti nere, se una chitarra suona, cantano mille capinere, hanno la chioma bruna, hanno la febbre in cuore, chi va a cercare fortuna, vi troverà l'amore, a mezzanotte va. Piacere e nell'oscurità ognuno vuole godere, son baci di passione, l'amore non sa tacere, e questa è la canzone di mille capinere. Il bandolero stanco scende la sierra misteriosa, sul suo cavallo bianco spicca la lampa di una rosa, quel fior di primavera vuol dire fedeltà, e alla sua capinera egli lo porterà, a mezzanotte va la ronda del piacere, e nell'oscurità ognuno vuol godere, son baci di passione, l'amor non sa tacere, e questa è la canzone di mille capinere. Musica.
Well, thank you very much to the people who are here. We haven't finished yet.
E chi ritornerà lasciando le miniere, forse riporterà dell'oro in un forziere, ma il cuore lascerà tra mille capinere. E questa è la canzone di mille capinere.
I would have been better off leaving that last part out. But anyway, look, the most important thing about all this is that you have fun too. And we're introducing the songs that can be learned as well. And thank you, Angela. Thank you to Mariana and Emiliano, Salva, for coming on. It's always good to have a bit of company. Here we go, the next one.
Well, il cuore è uno zingaro is one of Nicola Di Bari's famous songs, and we're going to try today with Dora. Let's go. Ok. Il cuore è uno zingaro. Avevo una ferita in fondo al cuore, soffrivo, le dissi non è niente ma mentivo, piangevo, perché si è fatto tardi e già notte, non mi tenere, lasciami giù, mi disse non guardarmi negli occhi, e mi lasciò cantando così. Che colpa ne ho, che il cuore uno zingaro e va, catene non ha, il cuore uno zingaro e va, finché troverà il prato più verde che c'è, raccoglierà le stelle su di sé e si fermerà. Chissà, e si fermerà, l'ho vista dopo un anno. L'ho vista dopo un anno, l'altra sera, rideva, mi stringeva, sapeva che il mio cuore batteva, mi disse stiamo insieme stasera, che voglia di risponderle sì, ma senza mai guardarla negli occhi, io la lasciai cantando così. Che colpa ne ho, se il cuore uno zingaro e va, catene non ha, il cuore uno zingaro e va, finché troverà il prato più verde che c'è, raccoglierà le stelle su di sé e si fermerà, chissà, e si fermerà, la 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 la.
I think that's it, no? Look, the idea is to get the words of songs learned and to use them. In my case, I found a use for them as well. But it doesn't matter that you make a mistake. At the end of the day, if you don't do it professionally, you're not getting paid for it. So in other words, what you do is you enjoy yourself and you learn the words of songs, because music is mathematical. So the musician looks at every time, Angela Marquez say, you can't sing. And then somebody else too, they all want very precise, because the notes, music is very mathematical. They go up to the ottavi. They've got to come in. When the orchestra plays, they've got to be all, together. Otherwise, there's war. And I said, look, this is ridiculous. Singing is for everybody. Singing is for the soul. You can't just say to people you can't sing just because you want to be a singer that get paid or whatever. Oh, ma io ho studiato tanto. But of course che tu hai studiato. But that's your job. You want to do that, then you've got to learn. If you want to be a soldier, you've got to be able to march. If you want to march, you've got to learn how to march. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1. So, but in my case, I'm attracted to these things. So therefore, when I do them with passion. But because I do so many different things, I just encourage people to be themselves and to be happy in themselves and to use their own skills in their own way. You can't be precise in everything you do, but in the things that you do, you can become a master. And in fact, when I write now, I literally write directly. In 2 minutes, I can do a page, and there's no mistake, because if you know the grammar and you practice the writing. You want to tell your story, yeah, that's fine. And if you don't believe me, write your story in whatever you want, and come to me and I'll fix it up for you. I'll say, yeah, this is good, this is not. In other words, the grammar will improve your language, because that's the law. But Italian grammar, language is a moving thing. Look at the way Dante expressed himself to Nea. Big changes in language, but the grammar is the thing that tries to hold it together. A bit like the law. You legislate laws. When you don't like something, you legislate something else. And because that doesn't suit me, so that's what happens in languages too. Now let me see, have I lost it? Well, so we did that one. This one here is this one, I love this one. This one here is, I love this one.
Let's not forget that with Roman songs, Dora comes from the Neapolitan genre. So this one here, Come è bello fa l'amore quando è sera. And I'm going to do it. And Dora will accompany me a little bit. We'll see what happens. Yeah. Okay. Come è bello fa l'amore quando è sera. Chi per fa l'amore vuol il salotto o il separé. Chi si sceglie l'ombra profumata d'un caffè. Mentre c'ho da dite, a me piace amoreggiare per le strade in libertà. Quando poi tramonta il sole, so più dolci le parole a tu per tu. Com'è bello fa l'amore quando è sera, core a core con la pupa che è sincera, quelle stelle che ci guardano lassù, non so belle come l'occhi che c'hai tu. Luce bianca dormiveglia d'un lampione che ti insegna dove tu te puoi baciare, specialmente fra le rose a primavera. Come bella fa l'amore quando è sera, spersa nell'erbetta fra le rose e le panzee. Io c'ho una casetta che mi fabbrico da me. C'ha per tetto il cielo, c'ha la luna va giù, nel tramonto è tutta blu. Non ci pago mai pigione e ci porto ogni maschetta che mi va. E se un vigile mi chiede, lei che fa? Io rispondo, è casa mia che non lo sa. L'ho innalzata con i sogni sta casetta, e se qui la pupa mia mi viene a trovare, specialmente fra le rose a primavera. Come bello fa l'amore quando è sera.
Actually, that wasn't too bad at all. Come bello fa l'amore quando è sera. Huh? That's a good one. The Romans, there are a lot of beautiful Roman songs, and they really are very attractive. Chitarra Romana, Arrivederci Roma. So a lot of songs from Rome, very important and well worthwhile, because Italy has grown, the regions themselves come from different cultural backgrounds in many ways, because they were governed by different people. When Italy's Risorgimento, Italy unification, 17th of March 1861, Italy became modern Italy as we know it today, without the papal states and the Friuli Venezia Giulia that came afterwards as well, because of the wars that were fought, etc. War's always been about land and more land, and trade. So, but I'm digressing again. I think there's one more here. This one here is from, well, this one is from the professionals, because Reno has sung from childhood with Dora and Angelo, and he also plays the drums very well, and you know, he's very good. He keeps the tempo, not me, but he does it, and I try to follow him. So here we go. Hold on. Yeah.
Reina, this is your world now. Il tuo mondo.
Il tuo mondo. Yes. Mi racconti di un mondo che fu, un vecchio mondo che ormai non può ritornare. Eppure mi è rimasta nel cuore l'amore che tu avevi per me. Vorrei tornare indietro per un momento. Tempo non si ferma, corre lontano. Io stringo forse a me la piccola mano. Che un giorno mi accarezzava e da quel giorno mi ricordi vedi qua te. Indietro per un momento. Ma tempo non si ferma, corre lontano. Io stringo forse a me la piccola mano. Che un giorno mi accarezzava e da quel giorno mi ricordi quelli da te. Insegnare a capire tutte le cose che tu sapevi da sempre. L'amore, l'amicizia e il dolore. Ricordo, l'ho imparato da te. Vorrei tornare indietro per un momento. Ma il tempo non si ferma, corre lontano. Io stringo forte a me nella piccola mano. E nel giorno mi accarezzava e da quel giorno mi ricordi mi dedico a te.
Wow, bravo Reno. It's you know, they have been singing together for a lifetime, so he's very good. And don't forget, these things here are done, you know, in a few minutes. I don't waste a lot of time, and you can tell, can't you tell? So, but the idea is that we, you know, through Facebook Live, I can now communicate. I've been thinking about it for a long, long time in terms of la televisione, la scuola. And finally, for some reason in September of this year, I decided, yeah, I'm going to do it. And, you know, share some of the knowledge that I have and some of the resources that I have. So for me, this is an attempt, you know, I mean, it's full of, one can criticize it to smithereens, but behind it all is the idea that in Australia we have a whole big community of children born of Italian parents who don't speak the language well, who don't know it well, who don't know Italian culture, who don't know the history. In other words, their treasure, family treasures, intellectual treasures, emotional treasures, are not there. So you live by the moment, you live here, but se tu non parli l'italiano per bene e sei figlio di italiani, eccetera, allora perdi qualcosa nel tuo essere. You know, you lose something, and you lose the best part of who you are. And that's the reason why I go out of my way to do all these things, because I think, okay, you know, I always said, if Tom Padula can do it, I can do it too, of course. Because the idea is to make mistakes so that people are, you know, don't take it too seriously, come on. But a lot of people want to be, they want, you know, when they got to the public, they have to be precise. Now, I'll tell you a little story. When I was in Italian theatre at Melbourne University, we had to go to the Maya Music Bowl. And I was doing a really big part in March. It was an hour and a half on stage, and I had to learn all the part, and I did. And on the Thursday before the Saturday night, my producer said, my director said, learn this poem, four pages, learn this poem and recite it there for publicity. There were 3,000 people there. Well, I did learn it, but I went there and I had the paper in my pocket. And I said, and I recited the first part. It was a Trelusa one. I recited the first 4 lines. They started to laugh. Next 4 lines, they started to laugh. Third line, they laughed even more. Fourth line, even more. That was only half a page. I forgot the lines. And I said, I'm sorry, I'm going to go off. I forgot my lines in front of 3,000 people. I got into trouble with one of the people in the theatre. Oh, you know, you've given us some bad publicity, you did this and that. And the director said, Tom, didn't you have your paper with you in your pocket? I said, yes. Well, why didn't you take it out and read it? And I said, okay, now I understand. Why didn't you tell me? And then I realized, okay, that's the game. And then after that, I became a master of ceremonies. No paper, just what I do now. I talk, mistakes and all, warts and all, damn. And I don't waste time. And it was a good lesson. But it hurt for a long, long time. And then I had to do 10 nights of that play. 10 nights. It was terrible. But I did it. You know, tremi dentro. But then after that, I thought, okay. So the actor, if you like, has to learn the part well. The musician has to learn the part well. But the actor's got a bit of movement. You can, you know, on stage, you can change things. But when you do, you stuff up the other actor. And the good actors, if they don't like you, they'll give you the long lines. How are we? 8:33. Oh, too much. Sorry, I've talked too much. All right. Buonanotte a tutti, grazie dell'ascolto, eccetera. Ci vediamo la prossima domenica. Arrivederci. Ciao, ciao. Buonanotte from Tom Padula and TomPadulaTV and Insegna Booksellers. Ciao.